Well, Teydis was having his grim imaginings up there, projecting it onto us and the other characters. But meanwhile, down on the ground, grounded in reality, uh, they it occurred to Elaine that now might be a good time to mention something else to Lance. She'd said about his hair, and that was an improvement. They trimmed his beard up, and she said, "Lance, I don't think. Once again, I don't want to offend you here, but I think we probably better do something about your clothes." And of course, he laughed at that. He had no clothes. He said, "You're right. It was one of those things I just didn't want to mention. I guess my clothes, you cut them all to rags, getting them off me to save my life." And that was true, but still, Elaine, at that memory, she blushed bright red. Uh, but anyway, he said, "Yeah, yeah. Is there any chance that one of you ladies will go to Walmart and get me some clothes?" And they said, "Sure." Lance said, "All I really want, because I'm bicycling, I'm carrying myself. All I really want is if you'll get me a pair of overalls, farmer's overalls, blue. I like blue because when I get back home, I'm going to go back to being a farmer, uh, or helping a farmer, and a flannel shirt, and some undies, just the minimum, and of course, you can't use my credit card, I guess, but I'll make it up to you." Now he glanced over at Violet, and he was beginning to get a little afraid of her already, because she wanted to do everything, and she hated the thought of money, but she was okay with that. They'd keep the receipt, and he could pay later if he wanted to. So Elaine was going to do that, but she had to think, well, what size should I get? And he said, "Oh, I don't think it would matter very much with overalls, but here, why don't you take a guess? I'll just stand up." And so he stood up, and now he was not at all modest. He stood up, and the sheets came down. He tied them around his, or whatever you do, like a bath towel around his waist. And he stood there, and two women backed up, and they looked him over, and Violet said, I'd say you're probably a tall man, thin." And he said, "Yeah, that's probably right. That'll probably do just fine for both the shirt." And so she had what she needed to know, and now Elaine didn't have her own car yet. She'd only been driving for not even a full year yet, because she hadn't been in any hurry to get her license, and she looked forward to the chance to practice a little bit here. So she took Violet's car, and off she went. There was a Walmart not far away, and saw to that. Now, while she was gone, that left Violet and Lance alone there, but it was a pleasant time. It was a pleasant day. But I should say that, can you imagine what Teydis was thinking up there watching this whole scene go on? He, with his plagued by that grim imaginings of his. Anyway, they just enjoyed the day. The weather was so much nicer, and Violet went around, watering her plants and fussing with her garden. It was a special place for her. She had a bird bath. I might have mentioned that to you already. In the one corner, she and Elaine had set up a bird bath, and she had cardinals that would come, and there was a Cooper's hawk now and then that she would come and light on the fence, and various critters would come through. There's a possum started to show up on a pretty regular basis, and he looked a little bit like a cat with a long nose. So Violet said she was going to call him Pinocchio, although a possum wouldn't lie. Uh, but anyway, they just enjoyed the time, and it also gave Lance a chance to find out some about Lady Violet. I've told you already. See, Lance didn't know that. So he was asking questions, being careful not to be too nosy. But he wanted to know about her past. She had a New England accent, he'd noticed that, not a Virginian accent. And so she told about her father being in arts and crafts, and how she'd been married before, and the stuff that I've already told you. And so went the hour or so. It took a little longer than it would have had to, because at Walmart, after Elaine had bought all this stuff, she wondered about the flannel shirt, and she'd asked him about it, and he said, I don't want it to be showy, just get me a brown flannel shirt, sort of like the one that the guy telling this story right now is wearing. That color would be just fine. And she'd found that easily, and had got that. But as she was leaving, she thought, no, wait a minute. She made up her mind she was going to use her money and buy him another shirt. And she went back in and she bought another flannel shirt, but as bright a color as she could find. She thought about yellow, she thought about orange. She finally settled on red, a bright red. And so she bought that as well, and then headed back. And so now it was time, she got back, and now it was time to try these clothes on.